Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News. The news is live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra. In Kumasi, we are on Love 99.5 FM in over 30 affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. We are on Kekeli Radio in Ho, ATL FM in Cape Coast, Radio Y in Wa, Ganga FM in Jirapa, KTU Radio in Koforidua. You can go digital. It's on Spotify, Facebook, and myjoyonline.com app. This afternoon, Ghana Revenue Authority opens investigation into revelations some customs officials take bribes to assist importers smuggle cooking oil from neighboring countries into Ghana. I have the confession of some customs officials in our latest upcoming hotline documentary, Smuggler's Paradise. Leading bank ABSA projects a year-end rate of around 12 cedis to the US dollar in its forecast to shareholders.
Our reserves have actually gone down significantly, and that is one of the reasons why, with all the measures the Bank of Ghana is taking, the cedi is not responding to those measures.
And as government and the IMF visiting team gets down to business, some economists are urging government to consult more on the homegrown program forming the basis for the bailout.
There is going to be panic withdrawal, and that panic withdrawal could worsen the already existing situation that we find ourselves in.
The situation is that Ghana is currently insolvent. We are bankrupt. We cannot repay those.
We'll bring you the latest on the talks. Also, Ghana Airports Company Limited says Frontier's contract on airport COVID-19 testing contains information that cannot be disclosed. We have details for you. And United Nations commit 2.6 billion cedis to help strengthen institutions in Ghana to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and deepen girl-child education.
The United Nations is proud today to commit at least 260 million US dollars, 2.6 billion Ghana cedis to help to strengthen institutions.
Highlights also from the Global Citizens Festival over the weekend. Coming out this afternoon on the Midday News with me, Emefa Apawu. This is your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Please stay for details. Many thanks for choosing us. Let's dig in now. And the Ghana Revenue Authority says it has opened investigations into revelations some customs officials take bribes to assist importers smuggle thousands of cooking oil from neighboring countries into Ghana. Joy News investigations uncovered how the officials are bribed to assist local and foreign importers to smuggle oil from neighboring Togo and Ivory Coast to markets in Ghana. It is estimated that the state is losing 300 million cedis in revenue as the smugglers and dealers are bringing in 5,000 metric tons of cooking oil annually. We'll hear from the GRA shortly, but first, here are excerpts of our documentary, Smuggler's Paradise.
1,000 cities. 5 million. I thought we had the 2 million. We had the 3 million. That is 10, 100, 50.
There are many checkpoints between Sampa and Sunyane. One of them is the Sumwa checkpoint. I decided to test claims of complicity of custom officials in the smuggling of cooking oil to parts of the country. I meet Lillian Abrefi and her superior at the checkpoint. They are willing to prepare forged duty papers to enable the team move our oil from Sampa past their checkpoint.
If you had duty papers covering the gallons of smuggled oil you purchased, the expectation is that you will pay a minimum amount of bribe when the vehicle gets here. Where you're transporting the oil to is quite far. We would have left you off the hook if you were transporting the oil to Drubo, but custom officials at BBNE might arrest you. The way out is to use photocopies of duty papers from the shop where you bought the oil, and this will cover the consignment. Oil and rice are considered cocaine here. If you have the right papers, you still have to pay some amount of bribe. You should have budgeted for miscellaneous and use that to pay bribes to police and customs officials.
They suggested strategies the team could use to outsmart other checkpoints to get my smuggled oil to the final destination. One of the many ways is to use the duty papers of one of the big shots in the smuggling business in Sampa. Lillian calls Mrs. Naomi, as she is referred by dealers and importers in this business.
VIP bus and yeah, they VIP bus in my bema because VIP then you call no almost say almost I am almost say
VIP buses are the best means of transporting smuggled oil from Sampa. The commercial vehicle drivers are poor at communicating when they get to the checkpoint. I recall a dealer whose consignment was seized when they got to Bibiani checkpoint. We let her off the hook when she got here.
It is time to test how deep the skanker is. The investigative team bought 90 gallons of cooking oil smuggled from Côte d'Ivoire from Menu Ya Gladys's shop in the Sampa market. Ya Gladys's husband is a driver. He knows how to deal with the officers at the customs checkpoint along the way from Sampa to Sunyani.
You will pay 60 cedis on a gallon of oil. My husband will aid you to transport it.
okay.
The next morning, the gallons of cooking oil had arrived at the Sunyani market. Ya Gladys and her team had successfully transported the smuggled oil from Sampa. The driver admits, however, that it was not easy because he had to pay bribes to customs and police officers.
I had to pay bribes to police and customs officials who apprehended me while transporting the oil.
Ya Gladys and her team helped us to evade tax. The investigative team spent at least 38,000 cedis on this transaction. If we were to factor in the costs spent on the smuggling of oil as traders, we'll sell a gallon at 420 cedis. The current market price of smuggled cooking oil on the Sunyani market ranges between 415 Ghana cedis and 430 Ghana cedis. The decision to smuggle oil from Sampa to Sunyani gives our product a competitive edge over the locally manufactured oil, which at the time of the investigation sold at 475 Ghana cedis, a stark difference of 45 Ghana cedis. Many of the retailers of smuggled oil get their oil through this means. That's how they cheat the state of its badly needed revenue. The ability to outwit custom officers is the reason for the difference in the price margins of smuggled oil on the market.
Details of our latest hotline documentary, Smuggler's Paradise. We can hear from President of the Oil Palm Development Association of Ghana, Samuel Avala, and he's concerned about the impact of the smuggling on the Ghanaian economy. He spoke on the Super Morning Show.
We can reach import substitution level and even export to the rest of Africa where oil palm cannot be grown. And remember, oil palm is long-term investment. And people who would invest see that others are dumping, they are dodging duty and bringing the oil from other countries and then going through these unapproved routes. They don't pay VAT, they don't pay the duty, and then they end up appearing to be cheaper than what we have produced locally. What will happen? Such investors, whether they are local or international, they won't invest in the oil palm sector. So we will remain dependent on imports. And what these imports do is that we take a lot of hard-earned dollars to go and import, pay for the import. And some of these smugglers, they also mop up the dollars from the system to go and bring these oils. And yet, they are not paying their duties, they are not paying the VATs, they are not paying anything. And local industry, when it suffers, employment and jobs and the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of smallholder and outgrower farmers, all is at stake. That is the magnitude of the effect of this on the economy and on the value chain and in fact on the future of the country.
Well, the Ghana Revenue Authority says he has initiated probe into the revelations and will bring all officers found culpable to book. Here's Benjamin Bekai, is a Senior Revenue Officer, Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority.
We have the Internal Affairs Department that is under the Good Governance Department headed by a Deputy Commissioner. And they, as we speak, this matter is before them and they've begun investigations into it. We can assure you, we have disciplinary measures in place. And Customs is one of the institutions that disciplines our officers more, except that we don't come on air to say that we've interdicted so much officers.
So tell us, how many have you interdicted over the past few years?
There has been an instance where over 300 custom officers were interdicted before. You understand me? So year on year, we do discipline officers. We have administrative mechanisms that deal with officers who behave unprofessionally.
How about smugglers? How many have you prosecuted?
Smugglers, we fortunately, I think there is a court that has been dedicated for tax offenses, and I can assure you that we've set up a prosecution department that is in charge of these offenses. When we arrest them, they prosecute them. Unless we get in touch with them, we'll not be able to tell the exact number of prosecution cases they've had over the period.
That's Benjamin Lekai, Senior Revenue Officer, Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority. Now, the Ghana cedi is again losing ground against the major trading currencies, especially the dollar, after a brief gain this month. Leading global bank ABSA is forecasting a year-end rate of around 12 cedis to the United States dollar in its forecast to shareholders. The bank's South African research unit in a bulletin says concerns about a possible restructuring of local debt could be fueling the depreciation. My colleague Kweku Asante joins me in studio with more from the ABSA statement. Kweku, the bank has the latest on the current depreciation of the cedi and predicts what could happen by the end of the year.
So they are predicting that the cedi will end at an end-of-year rate of around 12 cedi to a US dollar. And separately, they are saying that the cedi has been falling sharply and that yesterday it fell to around 10.75 cedis to a US dollar as the market closed, and that there are serious concerns about a possible restructuring of domestic debts.
Okay, so the bulletin also talks about debt restructuring and concerns about it.
So they say that having met IMF in July, the government is set to commence formal talks on an IMF program on Monday, and despite the hitherto unconfirmed reports of a possible restructuring of domestic debt, we believe that any decision on this important issue will only take once and have discussed it with the fund. For reference, the IMF, in its recent report on Zambia, warned that while investors held 26% of Zambia's domestic debt stock, the Zambian financial sector held the bulk domestically issued debt, and in particular, these securities accounted for almost 1/3 of the banking sector assets. They are also reiterating concerns that this restructuring will have some concerns for local banks.
And there's a comparison between Ghana's treasury yield, bill yield, to that of other countries, especially on the continent.
So they say that if you look at the yields for Ghanaian treasury bills and you compare that to other countries, it seems as though the treasury bills in Ghana is underperforming, and they are warning that these negotiations with IMF should be able to take care of all that.
Okay, thank you very much, Kweku Asante. Well, Dean of the School of Business Studies at the University of Cape Coast, Professor John Gachi, blames the depreciation of the cedi on demand.
Our reserves have actually gone down significantly, and that is one of the reasons why, with all the measures the Bank of Ghana is taking, the cedi is not responding to those measures. So it's like we are having it difficult to bring about a short-term measure to contain the currency. And as a result of that, the demand pressures on the currency will be uphill. And we don't have supply of the currency to accommodate that demand, especially for Christmas. So these are the realities about the currency. We have actually depleted our reserves significantly, and that we are not able to supply foreign currencies.
Well, President of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, Dr. George Obeng, says government must revise its investment laws to address the depreciation.
We appreciate that we are in difficulty situation for government, but that does not also mean that we do not think outside the box and find pragmatic solution to the problem that we are facing. Because when there's a problem, that's where the best come out of leadership. And we are expecting that we all think together with government. We support government, devoid of politics. And as a nation, we come out of this solution, this problem. Otherwise, we are going into a ditch.
Well, for the next 12 days, starting today, government is seeking to convince the International Monetary Fund, IMF, to support its homegrown program to address defects in the economy. At stake is a $3 billion request to salvage the economy. We'll bring you details on the talks. But first, ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament, Dr. Kaisala Tuforsen, wants government to be transparent with the true state of the economy.
We need to know the restructure envelope, the amount of debt relief Ghana requires, the situation that the country is in today, the true state of the Ghanaian economy. I think the situation we are in now has nothing to do with liquidity. The situation is that Ghana is currently insolvent. We are bankrupt.
But Director of Financial Sector with the Finance Ministry, Samson Akligo, is optimistic the banking sector will be protected in the IMF deal.
Everything will be done to make sure that the financial system is protected and is stabilized. And that, a lot of actions will be announced, especially when an agreement is reached with the fund, to make sure that extensive engagement is done with the market so that we don't have the disruptions and that there is no need for any substantial panic.
Let me bring in Presidential Affairs Correspondent Elton Robe joining us on the line on the ongoing IMF talks. What are we learning, Elton?
So, Emefa, today, my information is a courtesy call. So the IMF team, they are expected to be at the Jubilee House. They will call on President Akufo-Addo and the Vice President, together with senior members of government. And then the matter on the table will be addressed. Now, government is seeking what I've been told is some kind of a policy credibility from the IMF, such that they'll be able to go to the international market and then borrow. Now, the issue about debt, the issue about revenue mobilization, and the fact that government continues to receive poor ratings from the ratings agency is what I'm told is impacting negatively on the economy of the country. What government is seeking to do is to get the IMF to give them